Well, hello and welcome to the PMQ live update for today, which is what? It's Thursday. It's July 2nd. We are so close to the 4th of July weekend. Everybody celebrate safely and sanely. I'm here with a good friend, Mr. I'm sorry, Mr. Mike Giusti of InsuranceQuotescom. And basically, what we're going to be talking about today is how the face of the insurance industry has changed in the pandemic. And so, Mike, why don't you go ahead and give us a rundown and say hello to the world? Let everybody know who you are and what you do and what we're going to be talking about today.
Well, thank you for having me. As he said, my name is Michael Giusti. I am the senior analyst at InsuranceQuotescom. I've been covering the insurance industry in one way or another for the past 20 years, so it's something that I have some fun with. InsuranceQuotes.com, just to give you a little rundown of that. We are an insurance aggregator, which means that we will pair you with the best insurers. So you kind of give us your information and then we'll go out and shop it to the best people who are out there. We're also serve as a clearinghouse for good information about the insurance industry. So if you have any questions or any, you're wondering about an insurance question, we're a good place to kind of get started and do a little bit of research. So happy to be here and hope I can lend some light to the issue.
Well, no, I definitely appreciate your time today. And, I like that you are doing the legwork, the grunt work, for lack of a better term, as far as like finding out the information, because we've been talking about, loans and stuff like that, but we haven't yet talked about insurance. And then, regardless of the pandemic, the insurance is always a big thing for any kind of industry, restaurant or pizzeria. So we want to talk about, I guess, today, what is kind of some of the changes that has happened. There are a lot of people who want to know if they can get reimbursement from insurance for being closed down,
right,
and things like that. I guess, there's new legislation in the works to include pandemics and so forth going forward. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about some of the new legislation coming forward.
Yeah, so I think that for a lot of business owners, the interruption insurance was kind of a rude awakening. And a lot of people learned a lot about interruption insurance, business interruption insurance, that maybe they wish they hadn't. And the thing to learn about it is it's part of your general liability policy, right? So if it's part of your general liability policy, it's designed to kick in if you have to close because of physical damage. So if you're caught in a flood or a fire or a hurricane, that's what this is really for. It's to step in and be your savior when you have to close down so you can get right again. What the insurers right now are saying is that since there's no physical damage to your premises, business interruption insurance shouldn't apply. Okay, and so that's caused a lot of consternation and a lot of disagreements in the industry, and because it's an add-on policy to your general liability policy. The lawyers are pointing out, well, wait a minute. This virus is airborne. That's damaging our air. So it should apply. That's what they're saying. And so whenever you have a contract and you have two sides and they're disagreeing about the wording in it, you get lawsuits. And I'm based down here in New Orleans. And one of the big first movers in the industry was Oceana Restaurant in the French Quarter. And they were one of the first to file a lawsuit saying, no, you need to be covering it. So I'm sorry.
Well, no, I was just going to say, it sounds like a lot of lawyer ball and just legalese that
it's a contract.
Stuff's been written down. How can we use the words that have been written to get out of our obligation to our insured people?
That's right. And and it's not necessarily get out of the obligation, but just cover the risk that we thought that we were pricing in.
True.
And so it's no one wants to write a check, but when you're obligated to write the check, you're happy to do it. And so now it's just an honest disagreement between what was covered and what should be covered and what we thought was covered. And I think that's where a lot of the business owners are feeling burned, as they thought they were covered for business interruptions because they had business interruption insurance, and a lot of the insurers are stepping in and saying, no, that's not quite how it works.
Well, it's like you said, party A thought this, party B thinks that. Is there plans moving forward to make them meet together as far as like well, business interruption has to actually include something as a pandemic, an airborne virus, or because I mean, it sounds like mostly it's like force majeure that's
Mhm.
covered.
Yeah,
Just like physical damage just through
it's
nature and
out of
stuff
my
like that.
control, right? Exactly. Yeah.
But again, you can argue that a virus is a part of nature.
Damage our air is what they're saying. They're saying it's actually damaged the airways, and we can't have the. So yeah, there's U.S. House Rep Thompson out in California. He filed a bill that said basically moving forward that these policies need to be covering this. And there are 7 state houses that I've seen to date with similar measures. So Thompson's bill is moving forward, and some of these states are actually looking at having it retroactive and saying, okay, now we need to go back in. And the states are really important because insurance is regulated at the state level. And so, the U.S. House and the U.S. Congress can make an overarching rule, but it's down to the states to say how the actual language of the contracts is going to be written. And so I've seen this in Louisiana and Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and South Carolina. But as this gets warmed up, I'm be very interested to see who's going to jump in, and once the lobbying starts, where it's going to go from there.
Well, it sounds like that does seem kind of to be a concerted effort to work together and get the verbiage. I hate using that term. Working at a magazine, I use it all the time,
absolutely.
but get that verbiage right, because that can be that loophole where somebody doesn't have to pay to somebody who actually needs it. So,
and some of the lawyers are advising the restaurants, if you don't, if you're being told that this business interruption insurance isn't going to cover you, they're saying, look for some of these other clauses that might be in there. And one of the clauses that they've pointed to is some policies have a civil authority clause, where if you're shut down because of government action, you should be covered. And some are ingress and egress clauses that say if people can't get into your business anymore, you should be covered. Some are what's called a key vendor non-performance clause, also known as contingent business interruption insurance. That's say you're a steakhouse and you can't get access to the steak, and so now you can't do your business, even if it was because of a pandemic. The fact that it's your vendor who can't perform, that might be a place. And then, as you mentioned, the force majeure clauses that now if you're being held to a standard by someone else, this might jump in and say that you don't actually have to honor that contract anymore.
Well, and that's the hard part, is there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to covering insurance, because it's what you understand and what the insurance company is telling you. And that's what I like, about you, Mike, is that you're here to kind of clear that up. You're here to tell us what they're talking about. It sounds like there is a concerted effort to actually change some of the verbiage and just make sure that in the future, should anything this terrible happen again, people are kind of covered or know what to expect or are educated about what they can expect. So we were talking also about beforehand that moving forward, most of these policies are going to have I think you said some policies are going to have a pandemic exclusion.
Yeah, I would say,
because they don't want to be responsible for that, but it has to be in bold letters that we do not cover this, so there's no question. But
and some policies said that bacterial infections or fungal infections, they're thinking of food poisoning and black mold. They had those exclusions specifically written in there. Very few said virus exclusions, and I can guarantee you that moving forward, there's going to be a specific pandemic exclusion on almost every policy. So when it comes time to renew, you really need to be looking at that fine print. Really tempting to just sign that contract and move on, but it's so important now more than ever to understand what you're buying. I could see, moving forward, almost every policy being excluded for pandemics. But I could also see a government backstop coming in. After September 11th, the government backstops terrorism insurance and the government backstops flood insurance. And so if it's something that we all need, but the insurance companies aren't interested in covering it in the open market, I could very much see a government backstop that would actually guarantee it and make it available to you. But that's all in the legislative process. And you know what they say about making laws and sausages, right?
I do. I'm not going to say it here, but Let's just the ignorance is bliss.
That's right.
But honestly, that's terrible because ignorance is not bliss. We need to know what's going on. We need to understand how it's doing, how it's going to affect us moving forward, which is another reason why, you and InsuranceQuotescom is actually putting together things like your, what is it, the state of coronavirus and the insurance industry report
Right.
that I believe that you culminated and actually wrote yourself.
That's right. I put that together to try to make sure everyone kept their eye on all the different moving parts. That's the idea, is that you need to manage your risk, and you need to understand the risk in order to manage it. And so that's the idea behind this report, is just to kind of let you know in all the different areas that you might be insuring, that would act, showing you the different exposures that you might have that you might not have thought about.
Well, and that's what I like here. So it's not just restaurant stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like you said, homeowners insurance, car insurance,
Mm-hmm.
travel insurance, which I've highlighted right here.
Yeah.
You've kind of just looked through the gamut of what everybody would need moving forward.
That's right.
Kind of cut through the weeds a little bit, but I wanted to kind of ask about the basic the business interruption insurance. No, hold on a second. I had that.
Might be.
I know that
talk about the operational risks once they start opening up. Might be an interesting point to cover here, and that comes down to liability. Liability insurance is there to protect you in case someone sues you, right, or in case someone gets injured on your premises or gets sick on your premises, and so. We do need to be looking at that as business owners, and you don't think, what if someone gets sick on my premise? Well, if it's one of your employees and they can show that it was a direct line, a direct vector between working at your restaurant and getting sick, then your workers' compensation policy is likely going to kick in here. If it's not an employee, if it's a customer, and they can prove that someone sneezed on their food and that's where they got sick, if they can show that direct line, you may have a liability claim that your business liability policy is going to be designed to pick up. But those are you got to just have those policies to make sure when you're in business. But really, the best protection is going to come from prevention. And the closer that you can stick to CDC guidelines, the better your case is going to be against negligence. Because negligence is all about, did you uphold your duty to protect others and to do everything that was expected of you. And the more you can point to someone else and say, this is what they say I should be doing, and this is what I did, the better off you're going to be.
All right. Cover your bases. Make sure you're doing everything you can so that you produce the receipts, I guess is a new term.
That's right.
The young kids are saying, right?
That's right.
I did want to say that, thank you for everybody tuning in. You can ask questions live here of Michael Giusti of InsuranceQuotescom. We're talking about insurance, just the state of the insurance industry right now during the pandemic and what it means to you as an operator. We'll get these put up there. We appreciate you guys tuning in. I did want to just throw out two words to you real quick. Operational risk.
Yeah, and that's what we're talking about. It really comes down to, are you following the guidelines that the CDC put out? Do you have that workers' compensation policy in place? Do you have your general liability policy in place? And those are the things that really are going to protect you. And then you got to look at what the state guidelines are, and what your, even down to your county guidelines are. Are you required to hang that PVC barrier between the cashier? Are you required to have different spaces on the between the restaurants? I can promise you that, or I'm sorry, between the tables. I can promise you that the more you're compliant with that, and the more you over comply with that, the less risk you're going to have when you do reopen.
Well, yeah, and like you said, the over compliance, it doesn't hurt to be, over precautious and just be ready to go. I manage the U.S. pizza team. It's like herding cats, all these guys, but I have to have a plan A through E because you never know. And that's what insurance is. So I kind of wanted to move on to something that, can restaurants actually successfully file an insurance claim if the pandemic closes them down? What are the ins and outs of that? Maybe when they can actually file a claim, or if you can tell somebody this is how you have to do it, so they don't have to waste their time if they don't meet the standards.
I mean, the thing is, if you're teetering on the edge and you are at risk of closing, the lawsuit is not going to be what makes or breaks you. The lawsuit is going to be, if you are able to survive through the law, because it's not going to take, just a couple of weeks to go through. It's going to take months and maybe even years. But some of those areas that you might be looking at would be, if you do have that civil authority clause or that ingress or egress clause, maybe the key vendor clause, or if your state is jumping on board saying, no, the virus is airborne, that's damaging your facility, therefore your business interruption insurance must be paid out, maybe even retroactively.
Well, and that was actually the next question. That's for the lawsuit. I mean, can somebody successfully file an insurance claim?
So
claim, not litigation there, but I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand, doesn't it?
I mean, you've got to file the claim, and
Okay.
if you're denied, then it goes on to the lawsuit. And what we're seeing with the first movers who are trying to file these claims, they're just being shot down. And so, the next move is probably going to find itself in court. And, that's really going to be up to the judge and the jury to decide what the language said and, what the spirit of the law was and what the letter of the contract is.
Yeah. Again, comes down to words. Make sure that your words are precise and they mean what they mean, because they're going to come back to, I don't want to say haunt you, but regulate you in the future.
And I know it's really tempting to just, scroll to the bottom and click I agree. But we need to be reading those words, because this is the time that it matters.
No, and then like 50-50, even just like signing up for something on your phone.
Yeah.
Half the time I'm like, screw it, agree. The other time I'm like, you know what? I'm going to read this today. Yeah. And I fall asleep.
Talking about arbitration and really start messing with you.
It's like, well, they get my firstborn kid and my firstborn hamster's kid. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
What do you want with my firstborn hamster's kid?
That's right.
Who knows? So, all right. So, will restaurants that are forced to close or scale back operations be covered by a contingent basis business interruption policy?
So the contingent business interruption is really interesting. That's where if one of your vendors can't perform. And so that would be, again, so say you're a bakery and you can't get access to flour because of the pandemic. That might be something that, even though, there's the we call it a vector of causation. Even though the original thing is written in saying we won't cover it because it's a pandemic, even though it started there, it went through your vendor, which you're actually insured for. And so that vector might actually be insured. Whereas if it was you just saying I lost profits because of the virus, you would be you'd be out of luck. But like I said, if you instead were saying, well, I lost profit not because of the virus, but because my vendor couldn't perform, that's where that contingent business interruption insurance might be in.
Well, and that's, I mean, I hope a lot of people already have that, but I mean, that sounds like almost kind of the best avenue for anybody to get, compensated for losing business.
You got to turn over every rock and see where you might find something.
Right. All right. Well, I like my next question was vector of causation. It had a question mark and it said explain.
And that's
very well did.
Yeah, that it really comes down to, what caused the loss, and is that cause covered in the contract? And even if that vector started with a virus, if it goes through something else, the government action, it hits the government and the government shuts you down, so you're protected against government shutdowns. Now you might have a claim. That now you might be able to cause say that the cause wasn't the virus, the cause was the government shutdown. And so I think that's where a lot of the language is going to get, really parsed out.
Well, I mean, just I think contingent business interruption policy. I mean, that's the best thing that anybody should ask if they go forward creating a shop right now, any kind of operation, or just renewing their insurance. It's like, what about this contingent, interruption policy?
So really,
is that kind of the broad, the safety net that most people can have? That's the easiest to get.
Yeah. So the thing about insurance is it's very easy to be overinsured. After September 11th, everyone was clamoring to get terrorism insurance, and I can't think of a terrorism policy that's been paid out since then. There may be some exceptions that I'm blanking on right now, but for the most part, that's not the big scary thing. And so it's very easy to be overinsured if you go and protect from yesterday's disaster. And so really, as a business owner, what you need to do is you need to sit down and say, what keeps me up at night? And then you need to go backwards and say, can I do something that's going to mitigate that risk, and do everything you can to mitigate that risk? But if you can't mitigate that risk, then that's when you need to be talking to your insurance agent and say, look, I'm really worried about this. What are my avenues to protect myself and my business? And that's where insurance comes in, is to mitigate those boogeymen at night that just make us lose sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that level of thinking that as an operator, you have to be thinking on all these levels, but it's nice to have somebody like yourself and your company that actually tells these people what they should know. We do have a comment from Daniel Perea.
Mm-hmm.
If a restaurant puts out a policy in place officially requiring customers to wear a mask, but doesn't actually enforce it, does that affect their liability? That's a great question.
Yeah, so you might actually be opening yourself up to liability there. And I cover the insurance industry. I'm not the lawyer, and so negligence is definitely a question for the lawyers. But my gut here would say that if you are putting in that policy, you're actually creating an obligation to your employees. And if your employees are showing up under the assumption that you are going to enforce this policy, and then you don't enforce that policy, I do actually think that now your employees might have a negligence claim against you, as would other customers who went there under the assumption that you have this stated policy and you're not standing up and defending that policy. I would be worried about that, for sure.
So it sounds like enforcement is key, because regardless if you're covered on your insurance side, you still have two different sides arguing in a legal battle. You know what I mean? As far as like this customer says you didn't, you say you did, your insurance company says hands off.
And that's where I was saying, the more you can go to, authoritative sources and say, here's the reason why I'm following this policy, and I followed it, here's the evidence I followed this policy, the more you're going to be protected. And so if early on in the pandemic, CDC said, hey, don't worry about masks. And so if you were following that guidelines and you got in trouble, you could point to the CDC and say, hey, it's not my fault. But now at this point, everyone's saying wear a mask. You'd be hard pressed to kind of make that case now.
All right. Well, I wanted to kind of move over to, I got a couple more things, just two more topics. But the last bullet point I have here that we talked about is insurance companies are in the business of managing risk. Consumers are not. So kind of explain that and why we need to keep that in our mind while we're choosing a policy that goes on. And we're going to talk more about, drivers policies and just something to cover your operational, your business going forward. But
yeah, I mean, I hope you don't wake up in the morning and think, oh my goodness, where's the risk coming from? I hope you're not sitting there living your life in terror and fear. And that's good. We shouldn't be worried about every little thing. But the insurance companies are, and they've got actuaries who are looking at the risk of absolutely everything. And so you can work as a partner and you can say, what am I not thinking about? What am I worried about? I own a pool, right? Well, I was, terrified that someone was going to get hurt in my pool. And so my insurance agent got me an umbrella liability policy, so that if someone slipped and fell and broke a tooth and then ended up suing me for facial reconstructive surgery, right, I would be covered. And so you don't need to know all the buzzwords. You need to know what's scary, and then you need to know to ask the experts, okay, here's what I'm worried about. What else am I worried about? What am I not thinking?
Well, on that line, I like that. Give me like the three things that a pizzeria or restaurant operator should ask for.
That's right.
Just give me those 3 bullet points.
Yeah. So I wish I had them specifically for the pizzeria, but
just restaurant and industry in general.
So I would definitely say that that's where your agent's going to come in real handy. But I definitely would want to be paying attention to general liability. So if someone gets sick or injured in my restaurant, I would want to be thinking about premises in case there's a fire. So premises coverage. And I would probably, let's see, what would be my number 3? It'd probably be, general liability premises, and probably then I would be thinking about the auto policy. If you're out and about and you're opening yourself up to the risk of delivery, make sure that you're properly covered in that area.
Actually, that's great, because that kind of leads us into the next segue I was just trying to talk about, is delivery driver insurance.
Yeah,
that's a big thing for pizzeria operators,
absolutely.
Especially now. Even people who didn't have it, but it's one of those things that just kind of, I still get questions about it almost every other week. It's like, well, what's the best insurance you can have? Do I cover myself? Do I cover them?
Right.
Is their coverage okay? What do you recommend as the best coverage for somebody who has delivery operators, especially now?
Well, I can tell you, let's start with what you don't want to do. And what you don't want to do is just let people drive for you and hope for the best. Because their personal insurance probably won't cover them if they're driving for commercial purposes. So if they're delivering food or they're ride sharing or doing anything like that, and then they get into an accident, their personal insurance will not cover. And so then they're going to go and sue the driver personally. If it's a teenager, they could sue the parents personally, but then they're also going to sue you because you're the one who put them on the road. And so you don't want to just require, just say, hey, your personal insurance is going to be good enough. And so this is where you might then require them as a term of employment to get a delivery driver policy or a business use policy. And so just say, look, I'm going to hire you, but I need you to talk to your insurance company and get this business use rider. Now, if you did that, they told you they were going to, and then they didn't end up doing it, that's going to protect you from your liability. But, it's really best to make sure that they're properly covered. Some insurers are extending the business use policies at no extra cost right now. So they know that the gig economy is so essential during the pandemic. That they're saying, look, just tell us that you're driving for someone. We're going to go ahead and give you free business use policy. But the bottom line is you need to contact your agent and let them know what you're doing and not just assume that it's going to be okay. As a business owner, you can get the non-owned car insurance. And so what that is if your employees occasionally, and here's the magic word on these, if they occasionally use their own vehicle, it's going to extend liability from your commercial policy onto the employee's vehicle. That would be like, say you run out of boxes or sauce or something, and you have your cook run out and grab something for you and come back. That's where the non-owned car policy could come in.
Does that not apply to drivers, like delivery
would
drivers?
Not apply to drivers, right? It would not apply to drivers because it's for occasional use. And so then you need to be looking at, again, having them have their own business use policy, or you can look at getting a commercial auto policy for yourself that would then be extended or could be extended onto your drivers.
All right,
and so
Mike.
That's a conversation you need to have with the agent.
All right, yeah, absolutely. And again, it's confusing. There are a lot of choices. Mike, I'm putting you on the spot as an operator. If I want to, you're just your best guess, and nobody's going to hold you responsible. But and how should I insure my drivers? What is your options?
I would make it a condition of employment that they get a business use policy and that they showed me the certificate of that before they started on day one. And then I would also get a commercial auto policy. And so that way I had the double coverage. The commercial auto policies, I'm seeing about $200 a month national average. Mm-hmm. So it's a very manageable expense that gives you that extra layer of protection. And boy, I if I was running a delivery business, I wouldn't rely on someone else's policy. I would want to make sure that I was doubly covered. But by having them get their own business use policy, then when you go to your agent and say, look, I've got this policy, you're giving me this, I used the term umbrella before, but you're giving me this this umbrella policy, they're taking the primary liability. I'll take the secondary.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to get down to. Just, Mike, just give me the basics. Tell me what I need to. Tell me what boxes I need to tick. So,
That's right.
No, that's great. I mean, it's because it is it's such a tricky thing to maneuver through. As far as
and that now's for the the plug. If you're looking for a new insurance policy, that's where InsuranceQuotescom comes in. We will take the basic information and then match you as best we can with the best price. And we don't care who you're going to go with. We want you to make sure that you're getting the best price and match with the best company.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that you were so patient about that. That's a great plug. But we definitely appreciate all the information you're giving us here real quick. So we've talked about the delivery driver insurance, vector of causation, anything that people really need to know. What's the best way for people to kind of reach out to you? I don't have this banner made, but if you can give me an email or somewhere.
I think contacting through the website would probably be the easiest way.
Okay.
The InsuranceQuotescom has a contact information, a lot of frequently asked questions. I think that would probably be the best way to kind of reach out. And I think you have the Facebook page too. I think that would be, if you can throw the Facebook page up there, I think that would be a really good real-time way to get some information.
I did have that. I will make sure to
That's all right.
in the links. But
just search.
It's InsuranceQuotes.com, guys. How hard is it to remember that?
That's right.
So we'll definitely put that up there. But InsuranceQuotes.com. If you go there, you can actually reach out to the contact us. And Mike's going to be there to answer all your questions. Mike, what is one of the best tips? You need to give me your number one tip for anybody in this industry right now for their insurance needs. Your best tip. And now you have another follow-up question after that. But,
my best tip is to not over-insure, but to make sure that you are covering the things that actually will get you out of business and you're understanding the policies that you're getting. So, a good business owner's policy is essential, but know what it does cover, know what it doesn't cover. And if it doesn't cover something, make sure that you're finding a way to mitigate that risk.
All right. Well, most people have to think about it. You had that ready to go. That was locked and loaded. That's awesome. All right. So now that you've given us the best tip, can you give us just one positive affirmation to make sure everybody goes to bed all cuddly tonight and don't have to worry about anything until tomorrow?
We're going to make it through this. We're going to do all right. Opportunity is found in crisis. And I think that if we all are positive and looking ahead, we're going to find the opportunities that are naturally going to be embedded in here.
I was trying to type it. I could not type that fast, but I really like what you said. Opportunity is found in crisis.
It is.
It's a great thing that anybody can go forward with. Be kind to your fellow man, woman, anybody. Be safe and be sane. But we're all going to get through this, but we have to work together. Right. So I really appreciate people like you coming on, to help us navigate some of these difficult waters as far as like insurance and things like that and loans. So, I mean, it's definitely great. And I look forward to having you on in the future as well. At this point, I got nothing else, but
if anyone in the chat has anything else that I left unsaid, you got me for a few more minutes. I'd love to.
No, absolutely. If anybody wants to put up some questions, we'll put it up there. But this is also going to stay live on PMQ.com, Facebook, US Pizza Team, and PizzaTV. Also mine, and I'm sure at InsuranceQuotescom as well. So we'll get back to any kind of questions you have. Anybody else wants to say something, just go ahead and put it up there. But at this point, I wanted to ask you, what's your favorite pizza?
Ooh,
that's the gotcha journalism. That's there.
I think a crawfish topping with a white sauce.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Oh my God.
Crawfish with the white sauce. There's a local pizza joint around the corner from my house. We walk over there and we get that. It's so good.
Well, it's funny because coming up in the next issue of PMQ Pizza Magazine, we have Gail Chernitz, who's from the New England area. And she has a crawfish pizza. It's the $25,000 pizza.
That's great.
Because she won a contest on Facebook, not Facebook, Food Network.
That's true.
She was able to walk away with $25,000 of Guy Fieri's money. That's nice.
Wow.
But it has crawfish on it. It doesn't have the white sauce, but she also made us a white sauce clam pizza.
Okay.
The traditional New Haven style pies. So it's hilarious. I'm sorry. It's just hilarious that you said
What a funny coincidence. We didn't set this up.
Not at all. Not at all. I'm super shocked. Yeah, because crawfish, I mean, who wants to eat something that's looking at you?
Oh, I love crawfish. I can do a hurting on some crawfish. I'm a good New Orleans boy here.
All right, man. Well, you're just a little bit south of me. We're in Oxford, Mississippi. So anytime you want to come up, it's not that long a distance.
No.
Or I can come down there. So we'll get together, have some pizzas, and talk about insurance and litigation and all those other big words.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. Well, I do appreciate your time, Michael. Everybody check out InsuranceQuotescom for any kind of insurance questions that you have about this post-pandemic era. If you're covered or if you're not, they're going to have all the answers for you for sure. So, past that, I just want to say stay safe and stay sane. Mike, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it, brother.
Thank you.